So I have my amazing model right here, and what I'm gonna be using today is all Olaplex products. So I'm using the number 9. I just did a nice wash directly onto her hair. She was already due for a nice clean reset. So what I like to do is do what I call product hands, which is where I pumped a little bit of the number 9 directly into my hands, and I'm gonna go ahead and just coat the hair, no rhyme or reason. In a minute, I'm gonna spin her around because I do want for you all to see the magnitude of having the curls dialed in immediately right when you come out from the shampoo bowl. So let's do a little spin right here. Now, as we can see, my model, Christina, she has tighter curls for sure. So sometimes what we have, and I'm gonna hand this to you just in case, there we go. Sometimes we really don't take the time to condition properly when we are at the bowl. That's super, super, super important. So make sure that if the hair looks nice and dialed in and the definition is there already, then great, then you can go ahead and you can apply your styling products. Sometimes people feel a little bit overwhelmed, which means that they need to go ahead and take smaller sections, and that's fine too. So again, I have number 9 in my hands. Number 9 is awesome because it has kind of like this like syrupy kind of vibe to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put it directly onto Christina's hair. If it makes you feel better, then you guys can go ahead and section after that. What I like to do is kind of section from the top all the way down to the back half of the head, and then you can go side to side like this. Now, why is this important when it comes to diffusing? Well, if the hair is not hydrated and defined well enough before you start the diffusing process, then you're gonna have a big, dry, matted mess. So I'm gonna apply a little bit more, one little half pump, run it through my hands just like this, and then I'm gonna make sure that I'm coating Christina's hair completely. Don't forget these guys underneath here. If you need to take a subsection, then you can also drop that down and use your hands like so. I use my hands for almost everything that I do. If you do feel a little bit more comfortable using like, you know, some type of detangling comb, that's fine as well, but please do be mindful when it comes to our natural textures. Our hair is a lot more delicate, so please make sure that you guys are going slow. As you can see, her hair right here is already like super defined. I'm gonna do like a little up close shot right there. Nope. Curls nice and dialed in, okay? So really make sure that the hair looks just like this. If it's not looking like this, you guys, then it's probably not going to diffuse with that much definition. It's gonna look super, super frizzy, all right? Let's take you guys back to here. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and work through this fairly quickly because when the hair is wet like this, you also wanna make sure that you're working really, really fast. If you're not working fast, and especially if you're underneath like a vent, like I have a heating vent right above me, the hair is gonna start to dry out super quick. And the more that you touch the hair, the more that you're playing with it, then you're really racing against the clock. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop my next section back here. As you can see, there's a clear little bit of definition and difference. So again, the faster that you can work, the better. Now, when it comes to diffusing, which I'll talk a lot about right now, why is it important to diffuse curls over just letting them air dry? And I wanna see if you guys are like a little bit interactive too. Please feel free to drop some interactive questions, comments, because I feel that this is super important when it comes to education. When it comes to air drying, our hair tends to remain in the state of, as we know, like the pH of water is in our hair a little bit longer. And water is around a 7, and our hair and skin is around a 4.5, 5.5. So I was a big fan of air drying for the longest amount of time, but what happens is if our hair remains in a state of it being higher than normal, then sometimes we're actually causing a lot more stress because a lot of clients, what they're doing is they are letting their hair air dry, but they're putting it in a bun, which again, isn't always the best thing. So if you can diffuse it, or if you can teach some of, you pros out there, if you can teach some of your clients to even diffuse their hair for a couple of minutes, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever, that's gonna be super, super helpful. So there we go. We're getting our definition slammed in here. I'm gonna work a little bit faster on this side of the head because it is really important. There we go. And again, we can see Christina's definition is already popping, all right? So I'm gonna go ahead and work on this section, and then we're gonna get straight to diffusing. The reason why I also love a product like this is the number 9 from Olaplex. It is the Nourishing Hair Serum. This stuff is incredible. A lot of times with tighter textures, we use a lot of creams, we use a lot of gels, and I'm a big fan of cream and gel. What I do love about this is the slip. If you have a nice slippery product, this can be really, really helpful for creating definition, and then you can go ahead and you can layer products on top of that. So Christina and I talk all the time, like we love a good foam, we love a good gel. Creams are great, but those are some of like our favorites because the definition lasts a lot longer as well. There we go. I'm gonna finish this side and then we are gonna get on to diffusing. So you guys see the technique that I'm using when it comes to this product application, and this is why it's so important, is if you're just applying product and you're just putting it in like this, which this is still actually an awesome way to apply product, but if we're just raking it through, we're gonna get a lot of separation. So you really wanna make sure that you guys are doing a combination. What I like to do is rake product through like this. You could do a smoothing where you're taking your thumb and you're smoothing it down like this, and that can be really helpful. But what I wouldn't do with Christina's hair is scrunch it upward. The reason why is Christina already has these beautiful elongated curls. If I'm scrunching upward, sometimes the hair sticks to our hands and it makes it actually a little bit more sticky, and it makes the product stick to our hand, and honestly her hair can become a little bit more frizzy, and that's not what we want at all. So there we go. I'm gonna bring this camera angle back one more time. That way you guys can see before I start to diffuse. And here is what Christina's hair looks like before I start diffusing. Again, the definition is definitely there. It's looking awesome. These curls are dialed in. And as you can see, if the hair looks like this before you start to diffuse, remember, if it looks dry when it's wet, then it's definitely gonna look dry when it's dry. So, the definition and the difference here, these curls are nice and dialed in. All right, I'm gonna do this other side. Actually, I might just wanna start diffusing from here. So what I would do, we're just gonna leave this as like our test side, so to speak, and this will be the side that we are actually gonna diffuse. Now, there's a couple ways to diffuse. What we're gonna go ahead and do is I'm gonna bust out one of my favorite diffusers of all time. This is the Dyson. And when it comes to diffusing, there's a couple settings that you guys need to know. So if I turn it on, right? Already that's on high speed, high heat. We don't want that, at least for me. When I'm diffusing, I have it on the lowest heat and the lowest speed setting. The reason why is because you're already telling the hair what to do. So if I'm telling the hair, hurry up and dry, then it's gonna do that, but you definitely wanna make sure that you're not doing it so fast to where it causes frizz. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my Dyson. I'm gonna take my heat down to a 1. I'm gonna take my speed down also to a 1, all right? When it comes to diffusing, a couple things that you wanna do is the following. Is let it hover. A lot of times on Instagram and on social media, we are taught immediately to start from the bottom, like this, and then to diffuse up from the beginning. You don't wanna do that. The reason why is because the oldest part of the hair is the ends, and they dry the fastest. So what you wanna do is start by hovering on the outside, and then once you get a nice amount of a curl cast formed, then that's when you can start diffusing from the bottom. Now, one other thing that I wanna pay attention to and point out is Christina's hair has stopped dripping, but we do see that on the ends of her hair, there is a little bit of a white cast. This will be a really opportune time to go ahead and blot out some, not all, of the drips that are on the very end of the hair. Now, you could do this one of two ways. You could use a microfiber towel. You could also use paper towels, and that's fine too. Just something that's not super absorbent. So it's definitely really important, because if you're sitting there and you let it dry also, sometimes it will form a little bit of a cast at the bottom, which is not a big deal, but you definitely want to scrunch that out later. So we actually might be doing a combination of the two, because I want to show you guys what troubleshooting you're probably going to run into, but how it's not going to necessarily ruin your day. So here we go. Now in a minute, what I'll also show you guys as well when it comes to diffusing tighter curls is I'm gonna have Christina, in a little bit when I let her know, is I'm gonna have her scoot down and rest her head on the back of the chair with a towel. This is gonna be super helpful because it's gonna give us some nice gentle over direction. So that way when she goes to shake it out, her hair's not super flat. A lot of curly people love volume, but we like the kind of volume that our definition is still there as well. So what this is doing is it's allowing for me to create a little bit of a cast, which is a formation, like a little bit of a seal on the outside. So that way when Christina goes to fluff her hair, then it has the definition, there's not any frizz. The great part about the Olaplex number 9 is it's an antioxidant, and that's what our hair in particular loves. Anyone can use Olaplex, but I do find that us curly people, we definitely are benefiting because we have the most disulfide bonds in the hair. Remember, the tighter the curl, the more disulfide bonds there is, and that is the beautiful patent technology when it comes to Olaplex. As we can start to see, like from the root kind of out to where her hair starts to get that cinnamon color, is we're not seeing as much water, we're not seeing as much shine when it comes to the product. Now, naturally, the product does have a lot of shine, but I mean the hair is starting to dry. All it takes with diffusing is patience, which a lot of us have a hard time with, and that's okay. But that's why I absolutely love to diffuse, because it really does teach us how to have patience. So this would be a good time to kind of like start to mosey around this area when it comes to diffusing. Now the reason why I keep it kind of backed up off the hair is because the Dyson blow dryer can get super hot. So right around now is where you can kind of press it slightly against the head, and that's okay, that's normal. But we definitely still want to keep it off the ends. We can kind of come in here a little bit. What I like to also do as well is stick my hand in on the inside of the hair and see how hot it is toward the scalp. The last thing you want to do is see your client flinching or you burn them. So make sure that you're constantly sticking your hand in on the inside just to do an internal temperature check. And you can also ask them. Her curls are looking super good, very dialed in. There we go. Christina, how's the temperature? Is it okay? Yeah. Christina says she's freezing out here, so this warmth is definitely beneficial. All right, in a moment, I'm gonna go ahead and switch my angle. I'm gonna show you guys another technique. There's a couple ways when it comes to diffusing that you definitely wanna do. If you have a hooded dryer, I have these really big hooded dryers as well that I'll show you guys that are right there. I like to put my client under the hooded dryer for about a good 10 to 15 minutes. It's really nice. And then you could take them out and then you can start to diffuse. That can be really helpful and a big time saver. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and sit this down and I'm gonna show you the technique where I'm putting Christina on the back of the chair. A lot of us don't have the ability to recline our clients, but I'm gonna show you a little trick that you can do. So I'm gonna take a towel. Can I borrow your towel, please? Thank you. So I'm gonna take this towel, and you can have just a regular towel like this. You can roll it up, so it's nice and comfy behind the neck. I'm gonna grab her hair, and then I'm gonna have you shimmy down, rest your neck on the back. Perfect. Now what that's done is it's allowed her hair to come back this way. So I'm gonna drop all her curls backwards. Gently, I'm not running my fingers through it at this point. Just a gentle fluff. Perfect. So I'm gonna keep the same. And then when I feel like a lot of this area, literally from here all the way to her line of demarcation, has a nice amount of heat in there, when I start to feel like it's getting a little bit on the drier side, then that's when I would switch to this way, and I would bring it all the way up like this. I'm gonna show you this for a couple seconds. I know Christina's hair, so I know what her hair is capable of handling. She also takes amazing care of her hair, honestly, so I know that her ends are not thrashed, is what I'm saying. Christina uses Olaplex as well. Now, what I'm doing too, and what I see a lot of times when it comes to social media, YouTube, whatever, is people will move it around a lot. They'll move the diffusing head around a lot, and you just really don't want to do that. Keep it in one spot and let it sit. Then you can let it go, bring it back up here. This is truly a great way for you to know how much that the hair can take. How much heat, speed, all of that. That's why I really recommend that you keep it on low heat, low speed. Come in from the side. And the bottom up right here. Now the thing when it comes to diffusing is a lot of people just think that it's just the way for you to dry your hair. If you're a person who is not a fan of your day one hair because you feel like it gets super flat, diffusing is a great way to add volume. It's a great way to add air on the inside of the hair, so that way the hair is not super flat on your day one. When you see those pictures of girls with like big hair and it's doing its thing, it's living its best life, it's typically because they've had either a full day of air drying, which who has time for a full day of air drying, like 8 hours letting your hair air dry, or that they've diffused at least a little bit of the time. If you can even convince yourself or your clients to diffuse your hair for at least 10 to 15 minutes, it's gonna be a lot better than just having your client air dry the whole day. When it comes to diffusing tighter curls, I think one thing to remember for sure, like I said before, is patience. This is not supposed to be rushed. This is not something that you're constantly trying to fix. Our curls will naturally do exactly what they're supposed to do if you just give it time. So make sure that you're instilling and using incredible products, that the hair is hydrated from start to finish. And remember, if the hair looks dry before you start to diffusing, then it's gonna look even more dry once it is actually dry. All right, we're definitely starting to get there. Christina has incredible curls, which you guys will see here. I mean, you can already see when her hair is completely dry. There's a nice amount of volume. The definition is amazing. So don't be afraid to circle back and watch this afterward, just so that way you can really dial this in. I think one of the main things that we sometimes don't have the ability to do is to do this over and over and over. So call up your curly friends, the ones with the tight curls, see if you can get them to come in, even if it's just for like a little demo. So that way you can get really familiar, get really comfortable when it comes to diffusing our hair. So in a minute, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have Christina sit up, and then we're gonna do a big flip to the side. That's something that I do with my clients all the time. Now this is also depending on how their body is. So if they had an injury, or make sure that you are taking into account what their bodies are able to do in that moment. I think it's super important to be inclusive of all bodies, and so make sure that you are definitely reading the room and checking in with your client, especially when it comes to flipping their hair around. I have some clients who have vertigo, so flipping their head around when it comes to diffusing is not going to be the best thing. So tune into that, see if there's a way that you can do a lot of the ergonomics for them. All right, so we have a nice, the hair starting to get nice and fluffy, gorgeous. I'm gonna hit up a couple more spots, And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna have Christina do a big toss to probably the left side, since we have this side bound up, which is gonna also be our side in the end, which we have to compare it to. Now, even though I'm not diffusing her right half, it's still important for you guys to see how much time plays a factor when it comes to diffusing. We all know that time is super important, especially in the salon world. But time and patience is definitely a dance. All right. Gorgeous. Now I can start to touch a little bit because her hair is starting to get a little bit more dry. So Christina, I'm gonna have you go ahead and sit on up. Take your time. Perfect. So if you could just do a little light toss with your head to the left side. Perfect. Spin Christina out this way a little bit. So now what you can see is her curls are definitely more in alignment. If you need to diffuse clients at the root a little bit more, that's fine too. But for me, it really comes down to seeing that definition. Now, her hair is not getting frizzy, okay? I really do attribute that to being on the low and slow method when it comes to diffusing. If you guys are trying to rush it, then you're definitely gonna run the risk again of the hair being frizzy. So again, when it comes to diffusing, keep it on low heat and low speed. I do have some some colleagues who feel differently, who like to do like high heat, high speed for just a short amount of time. That's fine. But when it comes to me and my professional opinion in my salon, I'm definitely going with more of a low and slow method. Now in this case, I know Christina loves volume. So I'm definitely going to knock in as much volume as I can. And sometimes that's actually going to happen at the very end. So what I'll show you guys as well is when Christina's hair is almost there, I'm actually going to take off the diffuser attachment and I'm going to hit it with a little bit of air. It's kind of going to have like a rough blow dry effect, but I'm not doing it to dry Christina's hair. I'm doing it to add air on the internal sections of her hair. What curls tend to do is they group up and they clump up, especially tighter textures. And sometimes we really need to add some air to kind of like get them lifted. So I'll show you guys how to do that. If you have to lift the hair a little bit, little sections like this to get at the root, that's fine. Especially for your denser curly clients. Again, just make sure it's not too hot, because some of our blow dryers can get really warm. Now I'm going to show you what Christina's hair looks like right now, with it being just diffused, just like this. So that way you can see how it can look, quoted, flat. Even though Christina's hair is not flat like anywhere. I'll show you how it can appear to be a little bit on the flatter side, and then how you can kick it up a notch by adding a lot more air to get a lot more volume. All right, Christina, come up to normal position. Perfect. So this is what Christina's hair looks like, just as is. If I have the camera back like this, she has like some nice lifts, some nice volume. That didn't take too long at all too, you guys. So you really do want to make sure that you're asking your client, do they like a lot of lift up here in the crown area? Because I know her, it's a hell yeah. So it's making sure now that we're actually getting in there and we're getting even more elevation. All right, so that's what Christina's hair looks like. This is just with Olaplex number 9 by itself. I didn't do any gel on top, any cream. You can definitely cocktail the product. if you want, but I love to just show a lot of my clients how this looks just with absolutely it by itself. I mean, seriously, like, look at the definition. Look at that shine. Yeah, Christina's hair is absolutely incredible. So here's what it looks like. I'm gonna go ahead and sit this down, and now I'm going to knock in a lot more air so that way we can get this thing fluffy. All right. So what I'm doing right now, guys, is I'm taking off the attachment. This is a mag attachment, which is great, so you don't have to worry about knocking it off too much, even though I have done that. But I'm gonna go ahead and sit that to the side. This is the point where I'm actually gonna go above my normal speed. So I will increase this to a 2. So this is what a 1 is. I'm gonna put my air on a 2, and I'm just gonna kind of roughly get in there. I'm keeping this focused off the tips of her hair because I'm not trying to make it frizzy, right? Get it in at the root. And you guys will be able to see really quickly how I'm gonna get her hair airborne. I'm gonna turn Christina this way and then tilt your head forward, kind of fold in half. Perfect. Remember these angles, you guys, because they'll come in super handy. What I like to do as well is use my hand now as like a pick. So instead of using a pick itself, I'll use my hand to kind of like gently lift and then add air at the root. Come around this way. You guys can also see how far back I am. I'm not super close. Again, this is really hot. So just back up just a little bit. Put this piece. And in a couple seconds, you guys will see how much lift. That just adding a little bit of air in there makes a huge difference. I feel like a lot of people are afraid to do this step because they don't want to mess up the curls, but it's really about just adding a lot more air. As long as you're not running your fingers through the hair, you're supporting it, it's gonna be really, really helpful. All right, I'll already show you what we've done here. So Christina, bring your head up to normal. I'm gonna bring you around the front. Yeah. Let's do it from that angle, perfect. So again, add a little air. Using my hand, once again, to kind of like lift it away from the scalp a little bit. Give it a little shake and shake. And let's look toward the phone. Oh, right there, perfect. There we go. So there we go. These curls are definitely diffused. Nice, fluffy. Definition's still there. I didn't have to worry about sacrificing definition for volume. And then if you've missed any spots that you still feel are a little bit damp, you can go back in with your diffuser tactfully again, put it back on. Sometimes back here in the nape area, we tend to be a little bit more wet because of the way that somebody was positioned. So just hit it with a little bit of air and that's more than fine. Here we go. All right, let's sit this down. You guys are able to see fully. Awesome. And then that's when you can play a little bit. When the hair is completely dry, that's when you guys can go in, fluff, pick, do whatever you want. Always ask your client or ask them if they have a pick as well. Most of my curly people will carry around a pick just to add some added fluff to the hair. So there we go. I'm gonna show you guys a nice up close and personal version of Christina's gorgeous curls. There we go. Absolutely stunning. Again, all we used was Olaplex number 9. Curls are dialed in. Super hydrated. Give it a little shake, shake, shake. There we go. That's when you know. If the hair is feeling stiff or looking stiff, then maybe we didn't add enough hydration. So it's really important to give curls exactly what they need. And if we can do an up close shot as well, again, the definition is definitely still there. All right, so we have hydrated, defined, juicy curls. We have our volume. Christina's hair will definitely get even bigger as the days go on. So in my opinion, it is super important for you to do a nice diffused set on day 1. So that way, as the week evolves, like these curls will continue to get more airborne. But the beautiful part about diffusing the hair is definitely making sure that you guys are taking into account what someone's favorite day hair is. So for Christina, let's say she was like, I don't like my day 1. Then maybe that would be a day where I would add more volume. But if Christina's like, you know what, I like my day 1, but I love my day 3, maybe not scrunching that curl cast away would be a lot more beneficial. So let's say that I used a gel on top of this with the number 9 first, then that is definitely making sure that afterward I'm kind of scrunching it so that way it blossoms and gets even more fluffy. But there you have it. Now what I will show you is our other side. And the reason why I clip this out of the way is because what I do see sometimes at salons is people wait too long before applying styling products. And what happens is the longer that we wait to apply styling products, the more that we touch it after that, the hair is gonna get dry, it's gonna get super frizzy. So I'm gonna show you guys the difference between us applying the product right away versus waiting. So here's what happens. So as we can see, the ends of the hair are starting to get really fluffy because I've twisted her hair and I had it upward. I see this a lot when people are diffusing, and if you diffuse this is gonna be a very puffy end of the hair. So it's super important to apply a styling product literally like right away when the hair is really, really wet. If you towel dry the hair first too, you're actually running the risk of removing too much water. So when you apply a product, sometimes you'll get a really, again, a really sticky finish, and that's not what we want. Even underneath here, the hair starts to do what I call webbing, which is if you were to diffuse Christina's hair right now, her hair would be a huge mess to detangle later in life. And that's not what we want for our clients. We want to provide them with the ease, and this would not be helpful or beneficial for anyone. So definitely make sure that when you have your client back at your station, if you're doing styling at your station, is if it's helpful to you, then go ahead and section them and then apply your product as quickly as possible. Get it all in right away. Try to avoid towel drying the hair first, which you guys saw that I did not towel dry Christina's hair at all. So here's the difference from the back. Again, this is what Christina's hair would look like, obviously, diffused, beautiful, just chunky curls. And here's what it looks like when it's wet if you do not apply a product right away. In this situation, honestly, I would probably go ahead and wet my client's hair down again, and then I would reapply it a lot faster and apply a styling product. All right, so there you go, guys. I'm gonna spin this lovely lady back around. As we can see right here in front too, this is an area that a lot of people will overlook when it comes to diffusing the hair. Go ahead and tilt your head down a little bit. Perfect. So the bang area. A lot of people, when they're diffusing, they're not taking into account the way that the front of the hair needs to be positioned. Christina kind of wears her hair in a lot of different ways. But today, even with her hair being drawn back, that was the point of me having Christina's head tilt forward, was to see the natural fall of the way that her curls like to sit. For me, that's super helpful because even though this is just literally half of her head, you can definitely see the way that the curls have already framed her face. But if you have a client where you've diffused them and you've made a distinct mark down the middle and you diffuse their left side versus their right side, you better hope that they like a middle part because that's how it's gonna stay. So really make sure that you ask before you go ahead and you get into that deep diffusing. All right. Perfect. You look gorgeous, Christina. Thank you. Christina, I'm gonna have you head on over to that station over there. And I'm gonna do a little recap because I think this is super important, especially if you guys are watching this on a replay or if you're watching it with your salon mates. So when it comes down to diffusing, once again, is you really wanna make sure that you're starting off with great product, all right? So first things first is have your client, when you have them at the bowl, make sure that you do a nice proper cleanse, do a great condition. I know that happy curls, happy tight textures, happy waves are all made at the bowl, and they're made because you're using really great products. I'm using Olaplex at my back bar, even on my clients who don't have any color. So make sure that you're using something that the hair is gonna respond beautifully to. Because remember, again, if the hair looks dry when it's wet, then it's definitely gonna look dry once you've dried your hair. I'm actually due for another wash day right now, so my curls are looking a little exhausted. But the point of that is you still want to make sure that your hair feels great before you rinse the conditioner out of someone's hair. So that's first things first. What I would then do is if you're not going to do any of your styling when you're at the bowl, then you want to make sure that you put in some kind of product right away. In this case, I definitely put in a little bit of number 9 when I had Christina back at the bowl. I typically will apply all of my styling products when I'm still at the bowl with my client. Now, when it comes to clients, a lot of people want to watch because they are visual learners. I'm also a visual learner as well, so I will hand them a handy dandy handheld mirror. So that way they definitely know how to, to look and to see like, okay, this is what my hair looks like when it's soaking wet. This is what my hair looks like when my curls are completely defined. If it's helpful, then you can tell your client as well to get a shower mirror, a frog-free shower mirror, and that can be really helpful. So again, wash the hair with shampoo, then go ahead and follow up with the conditioner. Make sure that the curls are nice and hydrated and defined then. After you go ahead and you rinse out your conditioner, then I would put in some sort of leave-in product. My favorite is definitely the number 9 from Olaplex because it has that nice slip. Tighter curls need slippery things. If something is too creamy, that's great, but sometimes you're not gonna get that long-lasting definition. And if something is too jelly, it might be a little bit too crunchy for your client, which sometimes can turn them off. I like to waver somewhere in the middle, so I like to start with number 9, which has that really great slip. And then I'll either follow up with a cream, a gel, some combination of both, a foam, whatever, what have you. Bring them back over to the station. Give your clients time to give their hair at least a couple minutes to absorb whatever water that it wants to. The biggest example that I can give you, and as a mom, is if you towel dry the hair too fast, you're the one telling your hair how hydrated or dehydrated that it is, instead of it telling you how much hydration or moisture that it needs. The biggest example that I can give is if you're a parent or if you've ever fed a little baby before, is if you give them a bottle, right? They just start taking the bottle right there and immediately, and they start to drink, and you give them 10 seconds of nourishment, and then you take it away. They're gonna be super upset. They're gonna say, no, I'm actually way more hungry than that. But you're like, no, you're fine. I'm just gonna take that bottle away from you. In my head, and this is the best way that I can communicate this to people who I educate and also to my clients, is if you're doing that with your hair, that's the equivalent of you towel drying the hair immediately after you get out of the shower, because your hair is not telling you how dehydrated it is. You are making that decision for your hair. Does that make sense? So give your hair at least a couple of minutes to absorb whatever water that it wants. And then if your hair starts to purge water after that, if it starts to drip tremendously after that, then it's absorbed all of the moisture that it can on that time of your washing style. Then you can go ahead and use a microfiber towel to blot away any excess moisture, and that can be really helpful. After that, that's when I would definitely make sure that you have some kind of styling product in the hair. So remember, you've already applied a little bit of leave-in conditioner or a little bit of product when you're at the bowl. If you're bringing your client back over to your station, that's when you want to work super fast, you guys. You have to actually go in with conviction and know what the heck you're doing. That's when you saw me applying styling product, which is Olaplex number 9 on Christina right away. So that way I'm using her hair, I'm using the water, and I'm using the marriage of the product to really do its thing in the slam and definition. Once you have got those sections laid out, you definitely don't want to do too much touching after that. Remember, the hair is a fiber. So the more that you touch the hair is gonna be like, okay, like, are you touching me when I'm dry or when I'm wet? You wanna put the product in and then just kind of walk away, so to speak. What I would like to do after that is if you have a hooded dryer, best case scenario is you can put your clients or yourself, if you're a non-client, you just happen to sneak in on the harebrained social media, is you can sit under the hooded dryer for about 10 to 15 minutes. After around 10 to 15 minutes, your hair has started to dry a little bit more, which kind of forms a little bit of like a curl cast. And then you can start to diffuse. That's the best way that I like to dry my clients. Sometimes people get really frustrated from doing a diffusing from start to finish. Their arms get tired, they're over it, they're not seeing the results happen fast enough. And remember, when you're diffusing, especially when it comes to tighter curls, is you wanna make sure that patience is at the top of your list. If it's not, then you're definitely gonna be disappointed by the results because you're gonna get a half dry, half mushy kind of curl, all right? So make sure that you guys are sticking to the plan. After they're underneath the dryer for about 10 to 15 minutes, then you can pull them out, and then that's when you can start to diffuse. Once again, when it comes to diffusing, these are the things that you need to absolutely remember, all right? So if you're going to diffuse your hair, then one thing to remember is you're diffusing from the root kind of out to around the ear. You're doing this, you're either holding it like this, maybe you're doing this, maybe you're doing some of this, maybe you're also just hovering. But you guys want to make sure that you're not doing this a bunch, okay? You're not doing the classic thing that everyone sees when it comes to social media, is that we're all starting at the bottom. If you're gonna start at the bottom of your hair, remember what I said is the hair dries the fastest at the ends because the ends of the hair are the oldest part of the hair. So it's gonna dry super, super quick, and then your roots are still gonna be very, very wet, and it's gonna be kind of lopsided. So focus on the internal areas first, okay? That's also the benefit of being underneath the hooded dryer. At that point, if you have that nice range of heat that is literally from like the root out to around the ear area, then that's when you can do a big flip to the side, and then that's when you can start to diffuse from the bottom up. Remember, and I can't stress this enough, it's not about how many times you do this, all right? It's not about that. What it is about is bringing it up and letting it sit in that area. Again, that's why I like to keep it on the low and slow method, because if you have this on high heat and high speed, your curls are gonna be blowing around, there's gonna be hair everywhere, and then your curls are gonna get really, really, really upset, especially the tighter ones. And it's really hard to reform a curl after it's been separated from its curl homies, all right? So make sure that you kind of leave it in this one area, let it sit for as long as you can, and then once that area has a nice amount of air blown into it, then you can release and then go to this section. Then you can release and go to this section. So make sure that you play around with it. Remember the tips that I taught you guys as far as like body, you know, however someone's body can or is not able to bend in a certain way, depending on injuries, depending on their abilities. So what you can do is you can use this towel, remember, put it on the back of the chair and allow for them to rest their head backwards. That can be really, really helpful. If you need for them to do a big flip to the side, maybe doing a big supermodel flip is not the way to go. Maybe they can do a neck roll to the side, or maybe you can help guide their curls over to the other side. That can be really great. Diffusing in those directions is really gonna separate the hair, and it's really gonna give the curls the ability to not lay flat on the scalp. Again, having your hair soaking wet against your scalp, which is a warm scalp for hours, also isn't the best thing. So you really want to focus on getting as much air into the scalp as much as you can. So go to your left side, go to your right side. You've already had them going backwards for over direction, backwards. And then you can always have them flip forward. Flipping forward for me is like one of the last steps. Be mindful again, what I like to do is have them place their feet onto the bars of your chairs. That way they're comfortable. They can fold and have their arms like this on their knees. That way they're able to support their body. Some people like to just hold themselves up by their core. I don't know how they do that, but make it the least exhausting for them, because if you have them in that position for even 5 minutes, sometimes it can feel like a lifetime. So when you have them forward, let them know also, hey, we're getting close. We got a couple more minutes in this position. That way it gives them a little bit of a goal. I think communication, even over the sound of a blow dryer, is super, super, super important. So that way your client knows the destination. They're getting excited. They're getting excited to see themselves. And so that way it makes the experience of diffusing a lot more rewarding, instead of them feeling like, oh my gosh, how much longer is this gonna take? And then the final step is to remove this guy and to just straight up use the air. Now, we didn't talk about cold air versus hot air, when to use cold shot air, so let's get into that for the last couple minutes that we have. Is you can definitely do warm air. I would still keep it on the 1 heat setting, even when you're rough blow drying, getting some air internally in there to get some nice lift. Save your cool shot for the very last step. Remember, the cold is going to help to close the cuticle down. That's what we want. But it's also going to help to keep the hair from going out into the atmosphere. Let's say you're in a place that's a lot more humid. If you're ending them with hot air and then they're going outside and you're in a humid place, and if there's water in the air as well, then the hair is going to try to grab onto those water particles that are in the air, and it's going to try to pull them in. So sometimes it might actually undo what amazing diffusing that you did. So if you do cool the hair down afterward, that is a great tip. Just the way that we would suggest to our clients to use cool water when rinsing out conditioner. That is a great way to make sure that they're not going out into the atmosphere and their hair is going to get super, undefined again. With that being said too, there's nothing wrong with having hair that is not super defined. That is just as beautiful, not even just as beautiful, that is beautiful as well. It's just going to really come down to what you want as a stylist, and also what your client wants as a final result. So I'll ask clients all the time, do you like definition or do you like volume? You have to choose one. I'll make clients kind of decide between that, so that way you know what they're feeling more. This also means that I'm still going to give them maximum definition, but it does let me know that I could add more air, that I could slam in a lot more volume, which is where that final step of you guys kind of rocking your hand and lifting the hair can be really super helpful. All right. So some big takeaways, once again, is to apply all your styling product on top of super wet hair. This is definitely going to make your diffusing easier, in a sense that you're going to be able to visually see how this is going to look when it's all said and done. If the hair looks dry when it's wet, then it's going to look drier once it's dry. So make sure that the curls look hydrated, they look juicy, they look super slippery. That's definitely going to give you a lot more insight as far as how the final result is going to look. Another tip, remember, is to keep your heat on a low and slow method. Again, this is on a 1 heat and a 1 speed. That's gonna give you a lot more control when it comes to not making the curls super duper upset. Also watch your towel drying. If you're gonna use a towel, please make sure to use a microfiber towel. You can also use an old t-shirt. You can also use paper towels, and that can be super helpful as well. But remember, don't dry too prematurely, because the hair needs to tell you how thirsty it is versus you telling the hair how thirsty it is. And the final step that I would say as far as a takeaway is to just have fun, be patient, try not to get frustrated by diffusing. I think a lot of people still just don't know how to diffuse because we haven't tried it often enough. So even if it's practicing on a doll head, or if it's calling in, one of your best people and see if they can, if you can practice on them, I think that's incredibly helpful, because someone's gonna ask you how to diffuse hair and how to be successful at it. So I hope that you can do it. If you guys have any questions at all, you can definitely follow me on Instagram. My handle is Curl Factor. So go ahead, log on there. I have a ton of different talks that are happening and some education coming up as well. So if you're interested in learning more about how to work with naturally tight textures, natural textures, waves, curls, coils, all that, then definitely make sure that you are turning on your notifications and that you are following me the whole way through. So thank you guys so much.